Tre Wilson, you are the Florida Gators' most explosive offensive playmaker.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. Happy 4th of July. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And I figured, it's the 4th of July. We shoot fireworks. They're explosive. Why not spend today and tomorrow talking about some of the most explosive Florida Gators? Right? Today we'll do offense. Tomorrow we'll talk defense. Tre Wilson is the most explosive offensive player. Do I even need to explain it? Is there anybody that disagrees with Tre Wilson being the most explosive offensive player? I don't think he should, right? I mean, Tre Wilson, freshman All-American last year, especially when you consider he's a true freshman, so not even like, redshirt freshman in his second year getting – no. True freshman there. Tre Wilson had 18 missed tackles forced, which – without context, seems like who cares, right? Next best receiver on the team was 9 with Ricky Pearsall. Tre Wilson had 18 missed tackles forced. That's a lot. It is. And I know 18 is just like, it's 1.5 per game, roughly, because he played 11 games, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 1.5 per game. 18's a lot, right? Because you got to consider also, this is just in the passing game, not including when he was a rusher on his 6 attempts, but just what he did compared to Ricky is not someone who's slow. He's not someone who's not dynamic. And Tre lapped him. Tre had 18. Tre lapped him completely. Yeah. 544 receiving yards last year. 480 of them came after the catch. Which I know, and don't get me wrong, I think I've been fairly critical of not Tre specifically, but his usage, I think, has caused question for how will he separate as a route runner downfield consistently? How will he be able to perform consistently just as a straight up wide receiver, not doing all these little pop passes and all that stuff? Absolutely. However, don't get it twisted. Me saying his usage kept him from being limited as far as being an actual wide receiver goes does not mean that he's any less explosive. The reason that they were able to get him the ball, or the reason that they were willing to feed him the ball so much, is because of how explosive he is. Because he's not, for example, I didn't put Aiden Mizell on this list. Firstly, because I didn't put players who didn't put out film enough. There's one player on this list who didn't put out a ton of film there, and that's it. So Tre Wilson is on this list. Aiden Mizell is not. Aiden Mizell, I don't think he's going to make many men miss. He could be an explosive player by just outrunning people. He's very fast, right? But he's not going to make a lot of people miss. So you're not going to give him that pop pass too often. You're not going to give him those gadget plays too often. In Madden, EA Sports College Football 25, sure, give him the ball where that's speed's all that matters, right? Which, by the way, Whole Nine Sports, WHOLENINE Sports on YouTube. We are going to have multiple dynasties, including a Florida Gators one. Just saying, once EA Sports College Football 25 drops, just saying. Just wanted to throw that out there so that you are aware. We're putting out gaming content over there. And we've been doing MLB. But Those 544 receiving yards, 480 coming after the catch, that's 88.2% of his yards came after the catch. I've been very critical of his usage, saying, oh, he's used like a gadget. He's just popped. That's fine. That's not a knock on him. That's more, I can't give him that praise as an elite receiver right now. But when it comes time to put the ball in his hands, he's one of the most explosive playmakers in college football right now, in the country, on the planet. Tre Wilson's one of the most explosive players, one of the most dynamic playmakers on the planet right now, okay? There's a reason that they can just pop pass and still get 544 yards from him, because he can create a ton. 480 after the catch is bonkers. And also, I want to make it clear, not all 480 came from those little pop passes. You got to remember, he had that play against Georgia where if it was 99 yards, he's going 99 yards. Like that play against Georgia where he took the little dig route and then just whoop, zipped by everyone. He did that. Like I don't want to get it twisted at all to say that this is any knock from him. On passes where he was less than 10 yards but past the line of scrimmage, because behind the line of scrimmage, he had 308 yards after the catch, right? It's a lot. Shortly past the line of scrimmage, 116. Shortly past the line of scrimmage, he had 11.7 yards per catch. 7.7 of them came after the catch. Like even when he was getting the ball short past the line, he was creating a lot of yards after the catch. Medium, he had 17.1 yards per catch. He had 5 after the catch per catch. That's good, by the way, because that means that you're catching the ball down there, probably with a defender near you, and you're creating additional yards after the catch. Like Trey Wilson is out there doing it. It's just a matter of will he be able to do it consistently when running downfield. 9 yards per catch in 2023. 8 of them came after the catch, per catch. Again, like you can complain about the check down Charlie stuff, the pop passes, whatever it is. He's making the most of those opportunities. He averaged almost 10 yards per catch while catching the ball on average, or being targeted on average, 2 yards downfield, catching it even shorter. Come on now. That's dynamic as hell. 55 rushing yards too, and 28 of those came after the catch. A receiver having after contact. A receiver having more than half of his rushing yards after contact is impressive. It is. Running backs do it all the time. Yeah. Receivers don't. Tre Wilson did in 2023, and that's why he is the most dynamic playmaker on this entire offense and arguably in the country. GameTime is an authorized marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer that it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I love that when I say like views from your seat, I mean that they literally show you if you're sitting in this seat, this is what you're looking at. You can see if there's anything obstructing your view. You can see if there's a good angle of home plate. If you're going to a baseball game, you can see everything. It's fantastic. Helps you make that decision. All-in pricing means that, guess what? You can see what it is with fees and everything. No hidden, nothing surprise, nada. Zilch. It's beautiful. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And this one might be a little... I feel like you might be a little sus of this one. The second most dynamic playmaker on the team, I think, Montrell Johnson, which is weird because I do think that that's one area where people go, oh, he's not the fastest, so how is he the most explosive? 5.5 yards per carry, especially when you consider that offensive line. Fantastic, right? Montrell Johnson in 2023 had 65.7% of his yards come after contact. Do you know how insane that is? 2/3 of his yards coming after contact in the rushing game, that's wild. Absolutely wild. He had 3.5 yards after contact per carry on 5.5 yards per carry. Just ridiculous. Okay. Just ridiculous. And I know that I also think that a lot of people go, oh, it's not explosive because he doesn't have the insanely long runs. That's not even true. Throughout his career, I mean, you look at 2021, Montrell Johnson had a 99-yard rush. I know that you got to see it to believe it, and I know that it was in the Sun Belt, but Montrell Johnson had a 99-yard rush in 2021 when he was a true freshman. When he's a true freshman in Louisiana, he also had 18 carries in one season go for 10-plus yards. Okay? 18. That's nothing insane, especially when he was one of the backs in the backfield for the running back by committee for Louisiana. Since getting to Gainesville, when he's been playing in the SEC, Montrell Johnson, who, by the way, his carries have gone down every year. He had more carries at Louisiana than he had at Florida in year 1 or Florida in year 2. So on less carries, he's had more carries that go 10-plus yards. In 2021, he had 9 carries that went 15 yards. In 2022, he had 16 carries that went 15 yards. Again, on less touches, or less carries, not touches, carries. In 2023, he had 13 carries that went 15 yards on less carries than he had the year before. In 2022, more than half of his yards came on those long runs. That's about as boom or bust as you get when more than half of your yards, when in a season where you had 156 carries, more than half of your yards came on 16 of those because you had those long breakaway runs. It was something that Montrell Johnson made a living off. Even last year, he had a lot. Considering how bad the offensive line was, come on. And also, I will say that with last year, there was also the Utah game where they barely ran the ball, the Georgia game where they barely ran the ball. And those heavily contributed to why he had less carries in 2023 than he had in 2022. It had nothing to do with him or ETN or anything. It was Utah wasn't in the game plan. Georgia was banged up, got blown out, wasn't in the game plan then. Okay? Those games he had a combined 12 carries for 88 yards, by the way. So that was still very productive. He just didn't get the ball like that in those games. But he's been explosive. And looking who those explosive runs came against, I mean, he had a stretch in the middle of the season against Vandy, South Carolina, and Georgia. Georgia, he had only 9 carries. 3 of them went 10-plus yards. And in all those games, he had at least 3. There were 6 games in which Montrell Johnson had 3 carries go 10-plus yards, or 3 or more carries go 10-plus yards. He created explosive yardage when it was there. It just wasn't there frequently. Or he picked up explosive yardage when it was there. It just wasn't there frequently because of how bad the offensive line was. We've talked about it before. It was 40% of his carries last year, he was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. Imagine if he wasn't constantly hit in that position. If he wasn't constantly being assaulted behind the line. He had 32 missed tackles forced. Okay? Montrell Johnson had 32 missed tackles forced in 2023. I'm pretty sure that's just as a rusher, not even including as a pass catcher. Let's see. 32 as a rusher. And as a pass catcher, he had another 9. So he had 41 missed tackles forced in the entire season. 41. More than 3 per game. That's what he did. I know, I'm not saying he's the most dynamic running back on the planet, but I am saying he's more explosive than you give him credit for. And again, there's levels to everything. He doesn't have the insane carry numbers or the insane explosive numbers that some other guys have. But Montrell Johnson is still explosive in this offense when he's not working behind a horrible offensive line. 32 missed tackles forced in 2023, again, as a rusher. Will be better when he gets, more space with hopefully a better offensive line getting more. Because a lot of these missed tackles forced were at or near behind the line or at or near the line of scrimmage. 2022, he had 36 missed tackles forced with a slightly better offensive line. And also the 24 carries of 10 plus yards, same number as Travis Etienne. The same number. I just wanted to throw that one out there as well. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are talking about one of Florida's newest additions. Actually, is he Florida's newest addition on offense? I think he's Florida's newest addition on offense. Elijhah Badger, or at least for the 2024 season. Elijhah Badger, wide receiver, Arizona State. I know that he's big-ish. He's thought of as, an X receiver, and X receivers typically aren't thought of as, oh, he's going to make so many men miss. He's going to make these big plays. I say, nay. We talked about Tre Wilson, right? I don't think, even if you disagree with me about Montrell, I don't think anybody will disagree with me about Tre Wilson being incredibly explosive, dynamic, makes guys miss all the time, right? He had 18 missed tackles forced on Pro Football Focus in 2023. Elijhah Badger, X receiver, not going to make man miss. 26 missed tackles forced in 2023, according to PFF. 26. And that's what was considered a bad year for Elijhah Badger. In fact, I'll pull up what he did in 2022, which was considered his considerably better year as a receiver. And again, in 2023, on 65 catches, he had 26 missed tackles forced. In 2022, he had 25 missed tackles forced and picked up more first downs and picked up less. Like the big, actually, it looks, when you watch or you look at the stats, and he was more dynamic in 2023 than in 2022. 2022 is considered his better year production-wise with a quarterback and getting the ball deeper downfield. But 2023, he got the ball, again, shorter downfield by almost 3 yards, but almost doubled his yards after catch per catch. Almost doubled it. Had one more missed tackle force. I don't want to hear these not dynamic. And when you look at the numbers, 8.5 yards after the catch per catch, or 8.4 yards after the catch per catch for Elijhah Badger in 2023. Okay. If you remove passes behind the line of scrimmage, because don't forget, we talked about this when Elijhah Badger committed to Florida, that Elijhah Badger caught a lot of screen passes in 2023. That's what the offense called for because they couldn't throw the ball deep downfield consistently. And again, it's just what the offense called for. That's what Dillingham's going to do, okay? Caught a lot of screen passes. Let's remove those from the equation. Any passes behind line of scrimmage, let's remove. So screens, pop passes, any of that, remove them. Still, 7 yards after the catch per catch. So it's not like he was just catching the ball behind line of scrimmage, or it's not like he was just picking up those extra yards when he was catching it behind the line of scrimmage. If you remove those, he's still at 7 yards after the catch, per catch. I don't know if that's impressive. That's impressive. When you remove the numbers where you're supposed to create more yards after the catch and you're still doing it at a high level, yeah, that's pretty damn impressive for Elijhah Badger. 76.6% of his total yards came after the catch. Tre Wilson was at 88.2%. And again, a lot of pop passes there. Ricky Pearsall was at 38.8%. Elijhah Badger, not too far off from Tre Wilson when you consider that Badger saw a significantly higher percentage of his passes past the line of scrimmage. That's a 12% there. Seems like a big difference. But when you consider that Tre Wilson was catching a lot of his passes behind the line and Elijhah Badger wasn't, those are really impressive numbers, okay? They just are. 38.6% of his yards after the catch if you remove those passes behind the line. So similar to the 7 yards per catch, 38.6% of his yards came after the catch if you remove passes behind the line of scrimmage. So if you remove the passes behind the line of scrimmage, he's right at Ricky Pearsall's level of yards after a catch if you include Ricky's behind the line of scrimmage catches. If you include the pop passes that Ricky caught, he's got the same percentage as Elijhah Badger did. Again, 26 missed tackles forced in 2023. Tre Wilson had 18, Ricky Pearsall had 9. And I understand when people go, oh, he was doing it against the Pac-12. Pac-12 just had the national championship runner-up. Like, I'm not saying the Pac-12 is great. There's a reason that conference is dead. But also don't act like it was all slouches. In fact, looking up, I'm just going to pull, this could work out for me or it could not work out for me at all. But looking at what he did against some of these teams, like look at, let's see, Oregon, he had 65 yards. 70 of them came after the catch. he had to do everything on his own against Oregon, a team that was this close to the college football playoff. This close. Like that's what he did. That's a stupid number, actually. That's not stupid as in bad, stupid as in wild. Oregon State had a very good defense. Half of his yards against Oregon State came after the catch. Like he dogged after the catch. He did. Absolutely dogged after the catch. Elijhah Badger was elite in that area. Hopefully him with Tre Wilson will be very favorable for the Florida Gators. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast. I know it's a shorter episode. Holiday weekend, we're going to do that. We'll be back tomorrow, though. Talk defensive playmakers, explosive playmakers. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.